1958 was an unbelievable year in music and on the street corners. And while the doo-wop scene continued to evolve, so did the timeless harmonies and arrangements of the street corner composers.
What if I told you that one of the most soul-stirring music movements in American history was born not in fancy studios, but under flickering street lamps, in alleys, stairwells, and subway stations? A sound so pure, so raw, that it could stop you in your tracks. And yet, it all but disappeared, before most people even knew what they were hearing. But the real story? The one buried beneath record contracts, racial barriers, and vanishing harmonies? That's still left. Doo-wop. The name itself feels like a rhythm, a heartbeat, a time capsule from a world before digital sound and commercial overkill. But where did it come from? And more importantly, why did it fade? To understand doo-wop is to step into post-war America, the 1940s, a time of rebuilding, division, and quiet resistance. In black neighborhoods across cities like Harlem, Chicago, and Philadelphia, a movement was growing, not on stages, but on street corners. There were no instruments, just voices. Teenagers, often broke but brilliant, gathered to sing, turning emotion into harmony, pain into poetry. They borrowed from gospel, from jazz, from barbershop quartets and spirituals, layering voices in close harmony, inventing nonsense syllables, shoebop, doo-wop, ah-ooh, to fill space and beat back silence. They weren't chasing fame. They were chasing expression. Identity? A sense of belonging in a world that rarely offered them one. Did you know some of the earliest doo-wop groups practiced harmonizing on moving streetcars, using the rumble and noise as training to stay in tune? That's how committed they were. That's how real it was. And maybe that's why doo-wop resonates so deeply. Because it wasn't written to impress, it was written to feel. But then came the 1950s, and everything changed. Radio was exploding. The 45 RPM record had just arrived. Teenagers had disposable income for the first time in history. And suddenly, doo-wop wasn't just a neighborhood sound, it was a national obsession. Groups like the Platters, the Drifters, the Penguins, the Five Satins, they didn't just top the charts, they defined them. Songs like Only You, In the Still of the Night, Earth Angel weren't just music. They were a mood, a lifestyle, the soundtrack to jukebox dances, high school gym proms, and late-night drives with the windows down. And yet, behind the fame, a darker story brewed. Many of these groups were made up of black teenagers, some as young as 13 or 14, naively signing contracts that stripped them of ownership. Record labels marketed their sound but erased their names. The ones who made the music often couldn't afford the records they were on. How could something so beautiful be built on something so broken? The industry knew doo-wop worked, but it wanted it cleaner, whiter, safer. Producers began sanitizing the sound, pushing out the raw edge, replacing vocal imperfections with polished backing tracks. Groups were remade for crossover appeal. Some even swapped out entirely for white replacements, lip-syncing over black voices. By the early 1960s, something new was rising. Electric guitars, louder amps, British accents. Rock and roll had arrived, and doo-wop began to feel old. But was it really the music that changed, or just the industry's priorities? Because while Billboard charts turned to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, doo-wop still lived. In basements, in church choirs, in the humming of a security guard working the night shift, in the echoes of a barber humming while he works. It didn't die. It just went underground. Even as it faded from radio, its fingerprints were everywhere. Motown took its emotional resonance. R&B adopted its vocal layering. Even hip-hop, decades later, would sample doo-wop hooks, paying homage to a sound that never stopped echoing. Why is it that the most authentic art is often the first to be forgotten? And yet, doo-wop refused to be buried. In the late 80s and early 90s, nostalgia brought it back. Films like American Graffiti, Stand By Me, Dirty Dancing. They all reached back into the doo-wop era, reigniting public love for those dreamy harmonies and tender melodies. Groups like Sha Na Na played revival tours. Reunion concerts filled auditoriums with gray-haired fans still singing every word. Tribute acts rose. College a cappella groups reinvented the genre. Even YouTube creators today are blending doo-wop harmony with trap beats and lo-fi grooves, because something about it remains timeless. Maybe it's the vulnerability, the honesty, the simplicity of a voice laid bare. No auto-tune, no effects, no second takes. In a world of digital perfection, doo-wop reminds us of the beauty in being human, imperfect, emotional, real. And maybe that's why today, when you hear that sudden harmony, just a few voices blending together, you stop, you listen, because something inside you recognizes it. It's not just nostalgia, it's connection. So the next time someone tells you doo-wop is dead, ask them this: can something built from heartache, harmony, and hope ever really die? Because the soul of doo-wop still lingers in our memories, our music, our stories. And if you're still here, still listening, hit that like button if this journey through doo-wop moved you even a little. Drop your favorite doo-wop song or memory in the comments. We'd love to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, because we've got more powerful music stories coming your way. Until next time, keep the harmony alive.